How is it safe for nurses to work 12-hour shifts? Why can't they do the regular 8-hour shift? I am in a demanding job that requires I move around and am on my feet all day. I have had to do some 10 shifts in a row and I am dead after. How is it safe for a nurse who is at the 10, 11, and 12-hour point to work with people? Some places do women shrugging light skin tone many nurses like the 12s because you end up having 4 days off each week. As far as safety goes, there is some trade-off with the dangers of patient handoff and 12s result in less patient handoffs that 8s would. I feel far less wiped out doing 3 12s than 4 8s. Probably because my 8s are more like 10s. I worked in a warehouse and 12s were easier than 8s because of information lost during shift change. It's 100x more important in a medical field. I hated 8 out because it took forever to try to get caught up when you come in and catch the next shift up when they come in. If you can do that once a day, 2 by 12 instead of twice 3 by 8 outcomes are way better. Research has found longer shifts are actually consistently safer than shorter ones because changing nurses risks miscommunications in a patient's chart and that causes more harm than a 12-hour shift. It's safer actually. It's pretty easy to run the stats. And hospitals do most easily with surgeons. But it applies to doctors and nurses too. Turns out there is no significant difference in outcomes at the end of a 12-hour shift versus beginning of one. The thing that does have a noticeable effect on outcomes are mistakes caused by changing personnel. I refuse to work 8 hours 5 days a week. You can live your life like that. I prefer the 12-hour shifts. And they're just as safe as 8 hours. Because it's safer than having a shift change, where a patient might have said something to Nurse A. Nurse A doesn't note that anywhere. And then when Nurse B is on their shift, then Nurse B doesn't know what the patient said to Nurse A. I work 24-hour shifts 10 times a month. If I want overtime, I can do 48 or 72-hour shifts. Sometimes it sucks. Wait until you find out about residents working up to 80 hours per week. You will pry my 12-hour shifts out of my cold dead hands, lol. Ain't no way I'm doing this shit the majority of the days of my life. 4 days off is the only thing worth doing it for. More frequent changeover of healthcare providers is associated with higher rates of error and harm to patients. Continuity of care is safest. You get multiple breaks throughout the shift in theory. I fully acknowledge that isn't always the case, and you're the one that knows where everything is. Up to such as infusions and observations. A lot of nurses prefer it as well because they work less days per week and have more free time with their families or hobbies. It's not inherently unsafe if you are managing fatigue with good sleep, good food, taking your breaks, working as a team, etc. Lol, 12-hour shifts are easy. Surgical residents routinely work and do surgery on 24-28-hour shifts. The crazy hours working by doctors and residents need to be addressed as the standards that are forcing them to work them was written by a man running on pure cocaine. None of us want to work 8 hours for one. We've had 3-day work weeks for years and love it. Less staff needed. More time off. I only work 3 days a week. I can't imagine working 8 hours for 5 days a week. How do you get anything done? Try a 16 or 18 or that shit will get you going. Delete this. Stop trying to take away my 3 12s. I'm probably one of the only nurses here that feels this way but tried 12-hour shifts the first 3 years as a nurse, first on nights, then on days, and it literally almost killed me. I don't know how people can do it. Edit. After a long break off for my health, I got a job at an outpatient clinic 5/8 and OMG. It's like I have a life again. There are a few of us who prefer this schedule, believe it or not. It's not safe. Yet both nurses and doctors are often expected to do it. As a result, there are hundreds of thousands of patient deaths due to medical errors every year. Because people are exhausted and rushed. At least pilots have protections. Medical workers need more emo. I do not feel safe having a medical professional who is sleep deprived. Full stop. I also feel it is insanely grotesque to not only ask it of a person, but to expect and demand it. We already know that it isn't safe and leads to more mistakes in a field where mistakes need to be avoided at all costs. It's not fair to the medical professional either. Forcing them to work in a way that sets them up for failure and then they get punished? Cruel. It takes a certain amount of energy to get out of bed, shower, dress, eat and go to work. Once you're there, a few extra hours probably doesn't seem so bad if it saves you the opening routine a few times a week. I am good after a 12-hour shift with my patients. I get in the groove with them and what they are going to need. But to be honest, if this job was 5 days a week, I would be out. I would get another job, as it mentally is tough to do what we do. Most nurses greatly prefer the 3 by 12 hours shift week. I prefer working 12s than 8s. I hand off to one person, and I most likely will receive report from the same person, so I know where I left off, what they're picking up, and what I should expect when I come back. Wait till you hear about docs doing 24-hour shifts. It's not that bad once you get used to it. 4 days off a week is why we do it, lol. In most hospitals they do 4 shifts then off, so not 10 in a row. Also, fewer handoff been shown to be more least harmful. Shift change is the most risky time for patients' patient care, so reducing shift changes means less times nurses need to communicate updates about patients. Fewer times that procedures have to be rushed or delayed due to upcoming shift change. Fewer times where staff are going when a nurse is needed. It's not actually safe. It's been shown that more mistakes happen as they get past the 10-hour mark in their shifts. In reality, as a result, some states limit healthcare shifts to no more than 10 hours per day. I've worked 16-hour shifts. I can tell you from experience, mental acuity starts dropping off drastically after about 12 hours. After the third 16-hour shift, I wouldn't trust myself to add too accurately. Continuity of care, my friend. Giving report on your patient is a lot like playing telephone. The more people that get report, the more likely it is that the message will get jumbled. Also, you're more likely to catch a change in status when you've been looking at the person for 12 hours versus a shorter 8-hour shift. It is not safe, and studies have repeatedly shown that tired nurses make more mistakes. My wife works 3 12s and she's a lot more rested and relaxed in general. Less frequent handoffs are also beneficial to your patient's quality of care. The lure for nursing is that they can do this and then get off. A 9-5 days a week is not what they want. Do that and see what happens, lol. Almost no nurse wants to work 8-hour shifts. BC, you can end up on 10 days in a row if you're unlucky. Plus, an 8-hour day takes up the same mental space that a 12-14-hour day does. It's also easier to get people to cover staffing gaps if you have more days off in the week. No one is gonna cover if they just worked a 10-day stretch. The work-life balance on 8-hour shifts absolutely sucks. It isn't. Medical workers should be automatically considered to be committing malpractice at over 8 hours a day or 40 a week. But they'll never do it. Bruh, I just woke up after an 18-hour shift. It's not safe, but we're short and there's overtime on the table, so